Warning, this video contains violent imagery that some may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. What was the most disturbing thing you saw in person? About 8 years ago, I working as a train conductor, my locomotive engineer and I hit a young woman with an 8,000-ton freight train traveling 40 miles per hour. After applying the emergency brakes, it was my job to get out and visually check to see if we indeed had an accident. I found her contorted body in seemingly impossible ways near the side of the tracks. I radioed 911 to my dispatcher and emergency services were immediately called. She unfortunately passed away not long after the ambulance arrived. I'm so very sorry you had to be a part of that. You were an innocent person just trying to do a job. That was how my son took his life. I often think of the conductor. I've never met him/her or spoken to him/her. But I wish I could tell them that it was the depression that killed my son. They are completely without blame. And I apologize on his behalf for what they had to live through. One time I was having a sleepover at my friend's house, and she died in her sleep. Waking up and seeing her was pretty disturbing. Holy shit. I'm so sorry. How old were you guys? Was she ill? She was 17 and I was 15, about 2 weeks before I turned 16. She had epilepsy and had a grand mal seizure in the night. That's how a friend of mine died. He was about to turn 30 and looking forward to that party. I'm epileptic, this scares the shit out of me. And me. Can't unsee it now. So sorry for your loss. If it's any consolation, she wouldn't have felt a thing. I've had a couple of grand mal seizures before, and it's like going to sleep as far as what the person feels. She wasn't in any pain, and was surrounded by friends. An elderly man on a bike get hit by a truck. I had to hold his head together with my shirt to try and stop the bleeding until the ambulance came. I was waiting at a bus stop, and on the other side of the rather tall divider were 3 bikers waiting for the light behind a bus, at a major intersection. Moments later, another bus came up behind, but realized too late it had no brakes. Several people injured, but 2 of the 3 bikers were squished to pulp. One was thrown to the pavement on the far side of the road, and survived with injuries. I never dared cross the road and look on the other side of that divider. It was in the papers the next morning. Nigeria. I was walking through a busy market when I spotted a man having an altercation with the driver of a semi-truck. He got agitated and propped himself up on the truck's tire to try and reach the window. Driver started the engine and made to drive off, and as the wheel turned, the angry man slipped and fell so that his head was perfectly lined up with the tire he'd just been standing on. There was a sickening crack a second later as the truck rolled over his head and killed him. Here 1 minute, gone the next. I saw a guy on a moped crossing the train tracks just as slow. His helmet was rolling in the street. His helmet was not empty. I'm so sorry. That's awful. Was riding with my dad and siblings one morning on our way to school. There's a bridge we drive under every day. That morning we all saw a body hanging from that bridge. When we got home from school, the body was finally in the process of being taken down. So the body was hanging for another 6 to 8 hours and God knows how many hours before? That's fucked up. We'll get to it when we get to it, local authorities probably. Or it was a crime scene and they had to assess the situation before tampering with the body. Someone had to go out and spray paint a dick on it for them to do anything about it. I was no contact with my abusive addict mom for many years. She passed in 2020, a sheriff's deputy found her during a wellness check. It was declared that she had been dead for a couple of weeks in July heat with no utilities. My father and I drove to her house the day after they removed her body. You could smell the decomposition from a block away. She had canceled trash services and had 3+ years of garbage bags piled to the ceiling in her garage. There were rats running all over the house. 99.9% of our family pictures were pissed on or eaten by rats and not salvageable. Both of her toilets were out of order and full to the brim with crap. Everything I saw in her house was absolute nightmare fuel. My dad died alone in the camper he was living in when he bled out from his alcoholism. I didn't find the body, my brother did, but my sister and I helped him clean the camper so he could sell it. I think I've blocked the memory of the smell. It was summer and we don't know how long he laid there, but I remember blood spattered everywhere like a horror movie. An empty jug after empty jug that had held cheap vodka. I remember tossing the cushion he laid on as unsalvageable, but can't recall exactly what it looked like. I appreciate that my brain is protecting me from a lot of the details. Sorry to piggyback on your comment, but this reminded me of my dad. I'm super sorry about your mom. Even someone you're no contact with or you've lost all love for, it's not easy seeing them that way. I hope you've gotten lots of opportunity to process and work through things. For anyone else reading this, I always recommend just paying the money to have a biohazard company do this work. It's not worth the therapy bills. Sorry you both had to go through this. A man that was pulled into a wood chipper. Arm and half of head gone before they got it shut down. How did he get pulled into a wood chipper? Wearing a hoodie and got it caught in it. My dad runs a logging company and he always warns me about wood chippers. Everyone should always take extra precaution when operating or being near dangerous machinery like this. No loose clothing. Once one small thing like your sweatshirt sleeve or something like that gets stuck, it keep on pulling you into its teeth. The danger comes when you panic or forget about the emergency switch and it all happens so fast. So once that sleeve or something gets stuck, try keeping calm and remembering that emergency switch. Don't get turned into a red mist. I don't even handle any heavy machinery, but it's always the same rule no matter the machines. No loose clothing. I always use heavy machinery while naked just to be safe. Motorcycle rider missing their head. Launched across highway, run over by numerous cars before traffic stopped. Head was removed with helmet. That's so messed up, I'm sorry. I think that would make me instantly vomit. 4 unfortunately seen death on the roads a few times. But what made this one different was that the rider sped past me right before it happened and I thought idiot is wanting to die. 30 seconds later he was in opposite side of highway dead. I feel like peeps no longer know the limits of their vehicle and safety. Modern cars and bikes stick the road like crazy until they don't and you're dead. Where older cars were slower and had worse tires, you quickly knew the limits. Old motorcycles had 10 horsepower if you were lucky. Modern ones, it's hard to find anything below 40 horsepower. Even if modern cars are safer with ABS. But there's not much other tech besides ABS and seatbelts. Even ESP can't defy the laws of physics. Was walking through a city with a friend when we saw a guy on a bike, no helmet, come down a steep street right in front of us. Something made his bike flip and he went headfirst onto the stone cobble street. The cracking noise and the amount of blood was something I'm not going to forget anytime soon. Ambulance and so on showed up pretty fast, but I have no idea if he survived. I'd like to think so, but there was so much blood on the street I don't know if I can believe it. Sounds similar to what happened to me. I don't remember any of that morning but pieced it together after. At 16 years old doing my morning paper round, I went off the curb and onto the road as was my normal route. As I lifted off, the front suspension fell out of the forks and the front wheel went out from under me, hit the road with pure metal, proceeded to go face first into the road. I got airlifted and sent to the hospital, woke up a few times in the scanner and thankfully have no real injuries other than a massive Harry Potter style scar. My face was not a pretty sight and I still have the photos. My best friend and I were supposed to be pet/house sitting, and when we showed up on the first day, the owner, guy who hired us, and his brother were both dead in the house. There was a note and it was ruled a murder-suicide. Younger brother showed up at the house in a drug-fueled rage and older brother didn't know it was him and shot him. Then when he realized who it was, he wrote a note and killed himself. Your story made me think of this. Estranged daughter of 20 years shows up one night, kills brother and mother. The father hears the shots and gets his gun. He kills his daughter and her husband. He didn't recognize her and just thought it was random violence. Cops had to tell him it was his estranged daughter. The daughter also had gasoline to torch the house after. This was in Pennsylvania. There's more to this story. There was a ton more ammunition and stuff in the car. The plan, apparently, was after this, they were going to drop in on her high school reunion, happening the same night. She was in my husband's class and he was at the reunion. I was home with kids, about midway between both locations. Jody's father saved lives that night. I believe he passed not long ago and the house where this happened was recently sold. The so-called caring, loving Christian church I will never go back to after tonight, invite homeless people for a midnight dinner. Then telling them they can't have a plate, unless they pay $3 for it. The pastor took a plate out of a homeless dude's hand and said God would feed him. I left my wallet at home and they didn't even let me, a member of the church, get a plate for my 2-year-old son who was crying. They said let the paying Christians eat first and then if there was leftovers we can have some, when he said God willing and amen. I had to hold back from punching him. I left early and decided after that experience I'm never going back to church. Tonight broke my heart. I've given up so much for this church, only now do I realize, the credit card readers for donations, twice a service probably isn't going to feed the homeless like they say, but to buy all those fancy flat screens LG brand TVs all over the church. The pastor has rims on his car. I've been an idiot. While some of the messages were good. After them doing what they did tonight. I'll never go back. Edit. My wife isn't talking to me because I cussed out the pastor and smacked a plate out his hand, causing a scene. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I was legit upset nobody else saw anything wrong with this. I cooked and brought food to this event, and was told I couldn't get a plate. My wife will get over it in the morning. But yeah, tonight I'm sleeping on the couch. You cussing out the pastor reminds me of the cleansing of the temple, the story of when Jesus gets pissed at all the profiteers and flips all their tables over. Your wife shouldn't be mad at you, you are the most righteous Christian there, you rule. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for daily uploads. After you've done that, check out one of our other videos.